Hey Brawlers, I'm Mr. Hoodat, and in this video, I'll be going over the changes in the meta in November, as well as where I feel each hero stands currently, to help with your December climb. I'll be showing you data from my games this month, but keep in mind, data doesn't show the whole story. I'll just be using it as a visual aid to show my performance with heroes and compositions, which can show my biases and how I feel about those heroes and compositions. In November, we were given one big update on November 8th with patch 64.2. In this update, we received a new hero in Apocalypse, who has a unique mechanic that makes you want to rush to tier 6 to get full payoff. I'll be speaking more on Apocalypse later when I go over my hero tier list. We also received a new treasure addition in 9th Book of Merlin. This treasure was a great help to mages this month, as the only tier 5 treasure they cared about before was Mimic. Now, they have a second tier 5 treasure to go for when they upgrade their Aeons. 9th Book gives mages a much better fighting chance in endgame battles. More importantly, we received 3 removals of the game. Princess P never saw much play, and was only really used as a rare transitional unit when you already had supports and no other comp direction. Removing uninteresting units to make room for more additions later seems to be their plan to keep the game fresh currently. The biggest changes for this patch was the removal of Grimsoul and Harvest Moon. Before Adventurer was cut, I always felt Grimsoul was the bigger culprit and was often game breaking by letting you freely proc slay benefits like Adventurer's XP and Polywoggle's Transform. With Chupacabra's buff, it became clear that Grimsoul's current iteration was unhealthy for the game and stifled further design for the slay mechanic because everything created and buffed had to have Grimsoul in mind. Harvest Moon created a very easy transition into a powerful endgame composition with Medusas supported by River Wish Mermaid. The removal of Harvest Moon lets compositions that are countered by Medusa thrive a bit more without worrying about running into this combo. This is one of the big reasons that Copycat has seen a lot more play. With removals out of the way, we move on to the reworks and redesigns from this patch. Beauty and Potion Master have both been redesigned in a favorable way. Beauty has a much different playstyle now, involving good and evil units working and synergizing together. While Potion Master lost a bit of stats, he gained a ton of consistency by getting extra looks at spells to cast a high value spell for every turn. You want XP? You now have double the chances of finding it. You want Picomorph? You're pretty likely to find it now to cast every turn in the endgame. A less favorable rework was the changes to Loki and Ginny's Wish. They were both given an extra 15 targeted spells in their randomized pool, making the chances of getting early economy or mid-game XP a lot lower. An interesting unit redesign for the patch was Wretched Mummy. This is now no longer a tool to stabilize you when you're ahead in XP. This new iteration of Mummy helps Copycat with their mid-game transition, but without much support, this unit isn't very pickable anymore. The last rework for the patch is Fog. Fog was never all that valuable, even against full-on ranged compositions. This new version of Fog is a lot more useful, but I'd rather see Fog completely disable the ranged mechanic instead, as similar to their explanation of removing Harvest Moon, ranged completely negates the nature of taking turns attacking. With reworks out of the way, we now move on to the many themed tweaks for this patch. One of the major themes for the patch is buffing hero HP as a way to help balance these heroes. Buffing late game heroes HP by 5 is a good way to give them more time to reach their strengths without going overboard and buffing their entire mechanic. These buffs may seem minimal, but it's definitely enough to move some of these heroes up a tier in power level. We also received 3 hero buffs in the Cursed King, Geppetto, and Grandmother. Cursed King and Grandmother got much needed help, but Geppetto's buff really outshines them. Along with the 3 hero buffs, we also got 3 hero nerfs. Miri and Galahad get much less stat bonus from their triples now, making their potential to snowball a lot less. Skip not only loses an entire 4 gold of value by losing 1 XP, this nerf also makes his first turn consistency really bad, as you can no longer freeze a tier 3 board to ensure you get a good start. You only get 1 board to start with now, instead of 2. Moving away from heroes, another big tweaking theme is targeted spells. Gigantify and Hugify are now a lot more castable, and more importantly, With an upgraded Aeon or Merlin's hat, they can be forked much more easily, creating gigantic and huge value. Did you see what I did there? Stoneskin, Palm, and Flourish all gain an extra stat, which is a pretty big deal considering the major comps we've seen dominating the meta both get value from buffing units. Athena is now more castable, Cat's Call has been moved up a tier to prevent cheesing easy tier 3 fight wins, and Mix-a-Whizzle has been changed to transform the unit one tier up, instead of being based off your level. This was a big change to help Peter Pants get higher tier units, as before he was locked into tier 4 with Mix-a-Whizzle. Along with the many spell buffs, 6 treasures were tweaked to be a lot more pickable. Book of Heroes and Sword of Fire and Ice gained extra stats, becoming premium picks for their respective tiers. Piggy Bank has become a game-winning treasure in the right circumstance now. Since this change, I won a few Celestial Tiger games, getting infinite gold with this treasure. Summoning Portal and Feather moved down a tier, making these both premium treasures for their tier now, instead of being unhappy to see them. Pandora's Box is now a lot more pickable, as you only need to wait 1 turn for the value, instead of 2. Along with the treasure buffs, we also received 9 units slightly buffed. While all these units are now a lot more pickable, none of them became must picks whenever you see them. Egg is probably the most valuable buff, as you no longer have to worry about Tiny ruining your breakfast on turn 1. Overall, from this patch, we have 1 hero addition, 1 spell addition, 2 unit removals, 1 treasure removal, 7 hero buffs, 3 hero nerfs, 3 hero reworks, 3 spell reworks, 6 spell buffs, 6 treasure buffs, 1 unit rework, and 9 unit buffs. So with all these changes, what happened this meta? Here is a small data set of my compositions played this month. Without much of a look, one thing stands out among the rest, and that's Copycat. With all the targeted spell buffs, Friendly Spirit and Good Boy became a lot better. With the Slay endgame leaving with Grimsoul's removal, Copycat became its replacement. Copycat has a similar awkward transition point between tiers 4 and 5, where you need to collect spirits, copycats, and wombats and buff them. But if you can get past that point with either Hermes Boots or Crown of Atlas, you have a very consistent finish. Another big contender in the endgame that got affected heavily by all these changes is Mages. Mages got a lot better with the spell buffs and 9th book, and many believe Mages are more consistent and better than Copycat. But I personally don't like getting into Mages as often as I do Copycat. Trees, Royals, and Dwarves are still solid options to survive in the mid-game, but their endgame potential is nowhere close to Copycat and Mages, so don't expect to get first often. While Slay looks like it's performed well, let's take a look at the stats post November 8th. While it can still win games, getting into Slay is now a lot harder and can only be done with the perfect circumstances, which creates a much lower play rate despite it still being able to win games. This phenomenon is also seen with the monster composition. Despite it having the best average placement and winning 3 out of 5 games, the only times I'm getting into monsters is off of a cheated Oni King from True Love's Kiss, Polly, or Apocalypse. In fact, after further look, 2 of these games were off Horde Dragon Holy Grail. So once again, data doesn't tell the whole story. With my patch and meta-analysis out of the way, let's move on to what most of you are here for, the hero tier list. Last month, I compared my tier list to the rank 1s at the time of editing my video. But this time, I'll be comparing my current tier list to my previous month's tier list, so we can see how each hero changed, either from the patch or from me simply changing my mind. Instead of going over these heroes individually like last time, I'll be pairing them together and simply going over what changed. Starting with the 4 HP buffed heroes, I'd put Horde Dragon in S now, as he busts out a lot less and is one of the best heroes at playing mages because of his early opportunities at tier 3 treasures. Horde Dragon doesn't struggle much early as long as he gets 1 treasure, and his late game potential is one of the best in the game. I'm honestly not sure why this hero is buffed in the first place. Zelua has similar late game power to Horde Dragon, and his health buff and meta favor him pretty well. Copycat pieces are pretty expensive, and Zelua is great at cheaply collecting them. In the endgame, you can easily grab what you need, as Zelua gives you the most economy of all the heroes. Zelua deserves C tier now, because this meta favors him greatly. Muerte and Mordred are still not very good. Muerte gaining more health and having access to Mummy at tier 3 makes him good enough for D tier in my opinion, but Mordred still has a game-breaking bug that deletes your units, making him unplayable despite being a decent hero. The 3 heroes directly buffed all move up a few tiers. Grandmother's extra stats help a lot, but even more important is her power greatly helps copycat compositions, which is enough to move her towards the top of D. Cursed King being able to stifle the amount of damage he's dealt is a big help. The hero doesn't offer enough value to be anywhere above D though. Geppetto was given a much better buff than these two, and is definitely above C tier now. I don't have enough experience with this new Geppetto to accurately place him, but I'd say he's around high C or low B now. The 3 heroes directly nerfed all move down a few tiers. Miri is nowhere close to A anymore. His snowball potential isn't as strong, and he has a hard time getting into the stronger comps of the meta, warranting him a C placement now. Galahad is much worse, and after a few treasure buffs, he's not even that much better than other stat heroes. You need to not only get treasures to survive, but you need an incredibly high roll to start to snowball like before. His potential to bust is a lot higher, making him middle of D. Skip is still playable, but is certainly a lot worse. Losing first turn consistency is a big deal, because a bad start can easily turn into a 7th or 8th with Skip. Because he can bust out easily now, and he lost 1 XP, Skip moves down to lower C tier. The 3 heroes reworked all move to different tiers as well. Beauty has been seeing a lot more play, and many think she's a high tier. I'd place her around middle of C at the moment, but definitely need more games on her for a more accurate placement. Potion Master in my opinion is a lot better. The spell consistency is a big deal, giving him great chances at early economy, mid-game XP, and endgame combat spells. I now place him bottom of B, but I could see him being placed higher after more games of playing him. Loki received a considerable nerf. He already had consistency issues, but now struggles to find spells he needs. It's not enough of a nerf to place him below B, as he still offers a lot of value. It's just a lot easier to have a bad Loki game now, whereas before it was incredibly rare. With so many of the F tiers buffed, there's now a bigger gap between the meh heroes and the bad heroes, so I've changed the second F row into a second D row to reflect that. Fates, Morgan Le Fay, and Krampus did not receive any indirect buffs, so they remain in F. Trophy Hunter gets a gigantic indirect nerf with Grimsoul's removal. His late game prowess is now a lot lessened, and he flounders in the mid game without Grimsoul guaranteeing slay procs. He moves all the way to F tier because of this. Snow Angel and Pup receive small indirect buffs, enough to separate them from the rest of F. Snow Angel can collect free friendly spirits and can play for top 4 with Fairy Godmother and Hippo strategies. Pup received a decent buff with Sporko and Lady of the Lake gaining 2 attack. These awkward tier 4 supports made Pup hard to play in the mid game. Pan Shadow, Headless Horseman, Jax Giant, and Celestial Tiger remain in D. Pan Shadow moves to the bottom of D because evil strategies are worsened this meta. Celestial Tiger received a game-winning tier 2 treasure with the Piggy Bank buff, but it's not enough to move him up much because there are 22 tier 2 treasures. Horseman and Jack weren't affected much by the patch and meta shifts. Mrs. Claus and Sad Dracula remain in C tier. Claus is a bit better because she's strong early and can stay healthy enough to transition into Copycat, but her falloff still keeps her in C. Sad Dracula isn't affected much. Lightning Dragon is pretty good against Copycat, and Sad Drac can scale it well, but I don't think that's enough of a reason to move him up. He's still just a solid character without too much upside. Wonder Waddle moves up to bottom of A because he plays well with the 2 dominant comps. He generates easy tier 2 and 3 treasures, so he can get either Hermes Boots and Crown of Atlas for Copycat, or Hat Ball for mages. He often has a strong start, and can stay healthy to make Copycat transitions easier. Evola and Catter remain in B tier. I'd honestly pick a hero like Claus over Evola in this meta, but I can't convince myself she's better, because Evola still has a stronger early game, and falls off a bit less than Claus, despite her not playing well with Copycat or mages. Catter offers too many stats to ever fall below B. In a meta that cares about specific units, he gets a bit worse, but he's still too strong to fall. Merlin moves from B to A, simply because he obviously plays well with mages. Randomly getting buffs onto Spirit or Wombat can make Copycat a bit easier to play as well. I've always seen Merlin and Catter as very similar heroes with similar stat gains, but Merlin just gets a bit better this meta whereas Catter stays the same. Pied Piper and Peter Pants move up to S tier. Yeah, I said I didn't see Pied Piper being S last month, but with these patch changes, he got a lot better. He's strong early with extra shop choices and stat buffs. He can get into Copycat incredibly easily, and he can also get into Familiar early as well. Pants has become one of my favorite choices this patch with a new Mix-a-Whizzle. Before, I said he couldn't be above B because he couldn't get first consistently enough, which is important when climbing in high Mythic. With Mix-a-Whizzle changed and Cat's Call moved up a tier, he's a bit more consistent with Hatball and can generate more tier 6 units, which gives him better chances to get first and second, rather than being destined to get third and fourth. Chiron and Gwen remain unchanged and stay in A tier. These heroes still offer more upside than everyone in B. Chiron can buff specific units while being strong from turn 3 onward from stat gains. Gwen can choose to Knighthood early for tempo and maintain a high HP to play into Copycat or Fairies later. He also has the option for a strong tier 3 or 4 target to help scale faster than everyone else. Mask moves down from S to top of A. This hero was indirectly nerfed because 2 of his top picks, Skip and Grandmother, do not help him as much. Skip only gives Mask 2 XP now instead of 3, which is still very good, but less high rolly than before. Grandmother no longer gives him plus 10 HP, which hurts him a bit. Another reason I feel he deserves to be bumped down is because HP is more important to transition into Copycat. Mask struggles in the first 3 fights because he offers nothing until tier 3, so you're often playing down 10 HP. He's still a strong pick, but a bit less consistent now. Fallen Angel remains in S, while seeing her previous friends, Loki and Mask, move away from S. Fallen Angel offers too many stats to be anywhere below S. She still has the strongest mid-game out of the cast, and can play any composition well, using her mid-game strength. Any hero that can buy all the XP they see while still winning fights simply can't be anywhere below S. Often, a wish upon a star cast into winning the fight is enough to snowball a first place. The last hero remaining, and what many are waiting for, is Apocalypse. Where does Apocalypse land? Is he bad because he offers nothing until tier 6? Is he bad because he can't play into any scaling compositions because his board blows up? Personally, I think Apocalypse is the best character in the game at the moment, with Fallen Angel a close second. This hero often gets to tier 6 before everyone else, while getting a mini Holy Grail, putting him ahead of the entire lobby. There's really no chance to miss with your units, and there's always good directions to go, and it's easy to pair and triple these units before everyone else can get their hands on tier 6 triples. The clear strategy with Apocalypse is to create the strongest board possible at tier 3 and begin hunting for XP. Often, you'll be able to get 2 XP or more before hitting tier 6. If you get 1 XP, you might be in trouble, and if you get 0 XP, which is under a 5% chance with hard rolling, you're likely to just 7th or 8th. The extra 10 health you start with can help you survive to a better placement though. So with the patch changes, my hero tier list moved considerably to reflect the Copycat and Mage meta. I still go other compositions often, but I typically look for any opportunity to get into Copycat now. Once again, tier lists should not be blindly followed, and there is no epic ultra tier list for instant mythic climb. No matter where you look, you'll see major differences between top players' tier lists, caused by different experiences and playstyles, which influence our biases. I advise you to take a look at these lists, choose for yourself what changes you liked and disliked, and create your own list based off of this, with your own personal changes that reflect your playstyle and experiences. Because after all, the best way to climb is to enjoy what you're playing so it doesn't feel like a chore. Thanks for watching. Hey Brawlers, starting December, I'll be switching up my normal video process. Expect to see a daily video showing off 2 games each day, win or lose. I'll be trying to fit in more gameplay batches as well, and slow down the amount of analysis videos I make. After lots of feedback, I decided showing off 2 random games a day is a better learning experience than showing only curated wins, so you get to see all sorts of games, from wins, losses, high rolls, unlucky games, etc. If you have feedback for how to make these monthly meta-analysis and tier list videos better, or feedback from my new daily series, make sure to comment below, and I'll be sure to read it and factor it into how I make future videos. Once again, thanks for watching.